I had an idea for a show, but first I needed a table, backdrop, and a host with a microphone. That's me. I'm Thomas J. Beleza, and this is Let Me Be Round With You, a show where discussions are explored through civil conversation. So I found 4 people I like and decided to see where today's topic goes in hopes we can inspire positive dialogue. Welcome to another episode of Let Me Be Round With You, a program set in a roundtable environment for open discussion. Now today's episode is focused on the wage gap. Do women make less than men? I'm Thomas J. Belez, and I'll be your moderator for this exchange. I'm joined here today with 4 beautiful guests: Sarah Lee Taylor, Stephen St. Pierre, Samantha Jane Tilton, and of course, the one and only beautiful, sexy, erotic Justin Hunt. Now, if Sarah can give us a little something about herself, we can hear who she is today.
Hey guys, I'm Sarah with the C. I am an actress, writer, and I foster animals.
Oh, that's so beautiful. Now, do you let them eat and drink? Now, we'll ask that on another show, everyone. We don't want to get into loving your animal too much, which is another topic for another time. Hey, Steve, why don't you tell the audience a little bit about yourself?
Hey, I'm Stephen St. Pierre, and that's Stephen with a V, not those frauds that spell it with a PH, because the PH does not make a V sound, but I digress. I'm an actor, comedian, writer, director, and I've worked with the special needs population for over 15 years now.
That's right. And by the way, the right pH balance does fix your pool. I just want to point that out. Anyway, also moving on to the lovely Miss... Is it Miss or Mrs.? Which one? It's Miss Samantha. She last show after the show, she called me up and was like, "What? I'm not married. I'm on the market. I'm on the market. What are you doing? Don't give me away." Anyway, Samantha Jane Tilton, thanks for coming back. Tell us who you are, a little bit about you.
I never get married. Hi, I'm Sammy Jane Tilton, and I'm an actor, director, casting director, an acting teacher and coach, and the host of my show, Big Face, which is a podcast and YouTube show.
We love hearing about her YouTube show. Now, I want to bring up somebody that I love. I want to hear a little bit about this man. If I was a homosexual, he'd be my bear, Justin Hunt. Tell me a little bit about yourself.
Hi, everybody. I'm Justin Hunt. I'm a professional data analyst for a coffee company, and I'm a part-time bass player.
All right. That's right. He does play the fish constantly. I've seen it, but that's neither here nor there. It's the same spelling, different word. Look up the pun. We'll get into it later. Now, this episode, again, we're asking questions to understand the wage gap. Do women make less than men? Now, we have to define the wage gap before we could really get into discussion. And I'm going to read what the ultimately the Bureau of Labor reports and defines as the wage gap. The wage gap, or in this case, the wage gender gap, is a measure of what women are paid relative to men. It is commonly calculated by dividing women's wages by men's wages, and this ratio is often expressed as a percentage or in dollar terms. This tells us how much a woman is paid for each dollar paid to a man. Now, analyzing the most recent Census Bureau data from 2018, which is 2018, it turns out that women of all races earned on an average just 82 cents for every dollar earned by men of all races. I only point it out because you could look at the statistics and it will break it down into different nationalities. Why? I think people are just trying to segregate life. We should just be like this person and this person. That's all I'm saying, but moving on, that's another show. This calculation is the ratio of median annual earnings for women working full-time year-round to those of their male counterparts, and it translates to the gender wage gap of 18 cents. Now, with that said, let me define the position of this episode based on what we just explained. Now, it is true, women hold 58% of S&E related occupations. Women in STEM fields, which is science, technology, engineering, and mathematics, traditionally earn considerably less than men, even after controlling for a wide set of characteristics such as education and age, as per the Bureau of Labor reports. Now, why is that important to know for us to get into this subject? Because with 4,761 men dying on the job compared to 386 women in 2017. That comes to the data showing men more often than not work some of the 4 most dangerous occupations in the world. Those 4 being fishing, believe it or not, logging, oh my God, that tree just fell on me, aircraft pilots, okay, and of course, roofers. Now, which all have more fatalities. This is a crazy statistics. Those 4 have more fatalities than police officers, combining men and women, at 93 deaths for 2017 versus fishing, 224 deaths. That's insane. So what we're saying is, and we're going to throw this to Sarah to start, reports show that women rarely, if ever, take on these more dangerous, higher paying jobs. And as we're pointing out as a position, we're suggesting that the reason the gender wage gap exists is because when you take all the jobs out there, you're dividing those by what men make versus women make. But on the whole, women are taking lower paying jobs within the STEM industry, whereas men are taking jobs that their occupation is death usually, and they get paid more from that. A fisher might work three months and make $150,000. And it's just simply because less women are working those particular jobs. With that said, and the report shown, Sarah, do you show that the women rarely, if ever, take on these dangerous jobs? What are your thoughts on these statistics?
So I think a factor that definitely needs to be explored more is, are women given the opportunity to take on the jobs? Is it the women are not wanting to take the jobs, or is it they are being refused taking the job because men don't think that we're built enough to do that particularly?
As the statistic suggests, based on my research, and obviously this is a topic that I've studied because I study success, what's happening is women are choosing to take college courses in the STEM field more so than taking a trade as their study, as per the college reports based on the Bureau. It's not that they're not having the chance to take those jobs, because there are women who are loggers. There are women who are fishers. There are women who do roofing. But on the whole, they do not necessarily join those jobs. They join jobs, whereas a nurse, there was 29 deaths in a year, which is also insane for nursing. Like, are they jumping through the windows and going, "Oh, I thought there was a floor over there. I didn't know what was going on." So to answer your question, they are allowed to take position in those, but as per the reports, they are choosing to join STEM college courses over trade school academia. Would you like to respond to those statements, or you want to give it to someone else on the floor?
I would just like to say, I guess it's a comfort level with the reason why. That's all.
Okay. Hey, listen, that's what we're here for. We're here to discuss something openly and comfortably. Does anyone have anything to state on what Sarah said, or even the subject at hand with the question 1? Anyone? I'll be happy to move on. That's what we do here. All right. So question number 2, if women are paid on average, for the record, this is my brother's question, not mine. I just need to point that out. This is my brother's question, not mine. All right. If women are paid on average just 82 cents for every dollar earned by men of all races, why do we not see companies only hiring women? What are your thoughts on that, Stephen?
Well, I did want to say something real quickly about the first point. I just want to kind of open it up a little bit more because the statistics, the way they were read, as if if it were a whole. But I think the more interesting point is that the women are being paid 82 cents to the dollar. So there are jobs that are comparable that women would probably still get paid less. So if a woman were a fisherwoman and you have a fisherman, that lends to say that she may be getting paid less with the same job, which I think that that's kind of where the the conversation really is when the gender wage gap is talked about. So your question about why aren't companies hiring only women? I think it's the same reason why companies shouldn't hire only white men. They should have black women, black men, women, Asian, all different, just because you have to have the different perspectives in the world. If you truly want a company to thrive, you got to have the inclusion and the diversity, because if especially if you're, almost every company, you're selling something. So whether it be a product, experience, or what have you, your customer base should reflect what's in your company, in your boardrooms, and who's making these decisions, if that's what you're trying, the customers you're trying to sell to. So to hire only women, I think you're doing a disservice to the company itself. It should just really have an inclusive body of people, whether gender, race, age, even, just to be as successful as possible. So that would be my question to that specific answer.
Yeah, no, that's a really great point. You need the diversity to make a company grow. If you're talking about a company with 10 employees, now you can't diversify that in a sense where it'll be influential to a degree. If you're just like, well, we have one of every kind, it's really not as powerful as, say, as a Fortune 500. But I do have a question back at you because you brought up something, and I just want to make sure it's clear and understanding. Are you saying factually that you have statistics basing your position on that particular subject, where you're saying that when a woman does indeed become a fisher person, that they are being paid less than them? Because the statistic of 82 cents is only based on, as per the definition, the collective of all occupations, and how women are working jobs that do traditionally pay much less than the danger jobs that the occupation, therefore averaging out to 82 cents. So it's not that they are being paid 82 cents to the dollar. It's every aspect of the work environment. So I'm just asking real quick, do you have a statistic suggesting that women do get paid less as fishermen?
Not specifically as fishermen, no. And now, like you said, you cleared that up, because that was the point where I wasn't too keen on, but hearing that it's the whole. But I would challenge anyone who's watching this to do that research, to just kind of have that information for themselves as they listen to this conversation, so that they're more informed as well. Because there are situations where there are women who do the same job as men who get paid less. I mean, we just have, I'll take like basketball, for instance, and there are many factors why, but that is an ongoing conversation right now with the NBA and the WNBA. They both play a sport. It's, you put the ball in the hoop. They're doing, virtually and essentially the same type of job, which is, playing a sport to entertain, America and globally. And there's a big conversation right now about that, about how women in the WNBA make so much less money than the men. And it is something that they're trying to find a way to kind of grow the league. And the WNBA has been around now for going on 20 years now that they've been, in business as a league, and it's still a huge problem. I mean, we have the men and making upwards of, I think the average salary now, it's, I think maybe 3 or 4 million, if I'm not mistaken. And you have players making upwards of 40 million. And the WNBA, I think the highest salary is, the last I read, was about 150,000 per year, and that's the highest salary. So I think that's just like, I mean, that's mind blowing to me, how you could have these players, and that's just one instance. I'm just using that one example, doing this job, and the gap being that enormous. And I'm sure it, like I said, I challenged the viewers to do your research as well, and just see how some jobs are comparable, and that women aren't getting paid as much as men in these jobs.
Oh, all right. Well, I agree with what you're saying, based on your perspective of the knowledge that you are given, that you see it as that, and that's great. But I want to give some statistics to this industry, because I do follow sports, mostly because, again, I study success. What you're basing your what those statistics are suggesting is that ultimately the NBA, an industry that brings in $8.76 billion a year, versus, say, the WNBA, which is only $60 million a year in revenue. You're not talking about quality of sport or they're doing the same thing ultimately. What you're talking about is money. You're talking about the ability where more people, in fact, this is a statistic, you could look it up, more women basketball players do not watch the WNBA as much as they watch the NBA. That's an actual statistic. You can look that up. But additionally, the media, the marketing aspect of the NBA far exceeds. It's the same reason that the people who play polo or lacrosse don't get paid what football players get. even though they're basically entertaining people and they're ultimately, playing a sport. It's the same thing. We're going to discuss it a little bit later about the film industry and how they say that women get paid less than men, and I have a lot of statistics that are going to suggest otherwise. That women actually are getting paid more than men at the start and or definitely within the last 10 years. However, I do love your perspective on that. I'm just bringing up statistics based on research and stuff like that. It's just things that I look up, and that's the thing with any industry. So there are statistics where they're saying entry level women in a CEO position. There's no such thing as an entry level CEO. It's not entry level is the janitor, a clerk, someone who does the mail room. Those are entry level positions. CEO, you got to work for that. But again, those are insane statistics. We're just talking about ultimately, the basis of, what were your thoughts on the 82 cents on the dollar? And you gave some really great examples and pushback, which I love. That's what this show is about. And I do love that you brought up the NBA and the WNBA. By the way, the WNBA is exciting to watch because it's a sport. And sports are exciting to watch, unless it's the Yankees playing anyone, because the Yankees are going to win and no one can beat them. Okay, moving on. Go Yankees. All right. So I want to go to Samantha because she makes amazing pie and has a delicious tea at her house. But since I can't go there, we're going to go there with a question. The gap itself is designed to showcase the earning difference between genders, with the statistics being calculated by taking men and women over the variations of all positions. Does this suggest that the gap is less about gender and more about job placement?
It's interesting. It's a topic that I won't pretend to fully understand every aspect. You've definitely done a lot more research than I have, but I'm going to piggyback off of what Steven said. And I think a lot of it is job placement. Like I was thinking of certain things like the NFL, and there aren't women playing in the NFL, and the amount of money that the NFL players make is insane, but also they put their lives at risk insanely every time that they play. So the amount of money that they make, I mean, it's like one of the biggest sports in America. So there's that. I would be interested if I was to make a spreadsheet to have every single career on that. And if that was even possible, and then to see which, how many of those careers have women working in them and men, how many of them just have women, how many of them just have men. Like I was thinking specifically of firefighters. That's one of the ones that I was thinking a lot of. And I was thinking that, and this maybe will go against women, but there's been times where I've heard that women really wanted to fight to be firefighters. And I believe that they do. But I also have the belief and the feeling that like, even just the way that the physical body is different, the female and the males, women naturally have more body fat than men, right? Men naturally at their thinnest, and men will always have more muscle. Well, you know what I'm saying? Not always, but like just women have more fat on their bodies just as a natural, because they're meant to have children and all this stuff. Not that we're meant to, you guys get it. So there's certain things that there's not equality based on. So if you mean by placement that women and men have different skill sets and physical abilities depending on what the thing is. But if it's, pound for pound, we both do the same job, men and women, I believe that the pay should then be equal. But yeah, depending on the placement, if that's what you meant, I hope I understood that correctly.
Well, however you understood it is the presentation of that question. But yeah, you basically answered it, and there is no right or wrong, And to further confirm your inquiries, Bureau of Labor. You could just look up the Bureau of Labor, and you could look. They do it every time they do the consensus, and they do like basically a report of the nation. In fact, you could even look worldwide nationalities, and see what the comparison is. They already did the spreadsheet for you, and they'll even tell you the deaths. They tell you the deaths in those jobs, and believe it or not, firemen or fire people, they actually do not get paid as much as you think. And on the majority, they're volunteers in smaller areas. Unless they're major cities, they're volunteers, but they still get counted in that over because it's a job. So keep that in mind, which is just like, and believe it or not, less firemen die on the job than fishermen. Which is it's just when I was just researching this, I was like, even artists, artists are dying because they're just stabbing themselves in the eyes. They're like, I'm not drawing anymore. I'm not making any money. I did 38 paintings this year. All right. Justin, talking about everything here, my sans the eye stabbing, sands in your pants when you're on the beach, but sands. All right, anyway, let's look that up. It's a pun. All right, Justin, leaving the subject of gender gap and exploring the idea that the position of deadlier jobs are taken by males over females, what could we do to try and get more women to switch from STEM-based professions and tackle the more data-based dangerous professions leading to more deaths? I gave you the easy one.
Actually, I'm going to. I'd like to kind of chime in on the back of what Samantha said for that question, if that's all right.
Yeah, feel free to jump on that. Go ahead.
Thanks. So, basically, so the last position that I had, the last company I worked for, and this is all anecdotal evidence. There's no stats to back this up because I didn't interview everyone who worked there, but with regards to like pay and everything. But that particular position and that company that I worked for really illustrated that there is a big inequality with regards to which genders get different roles in the company. So with this company, overwhelmingly all of the lower level positions were held by women. So anyone who was in like an administrative assistant, data entry, clerks, that type of position, excuse me, they were all typically held by women. And then anyone who was at like a manager level or men, basically the transition came at like that first level of manager, where the managers of the individual departments, that would kind of rotate between men and women. And then anything above that, like department heads, directors, and then your VPs and executive boards, those were all men at past that first manager level. So there's something to be said for that, especially because we are talking about averages and aggregating all this data into just men versus women versus in holding all different types of positions. There are still a lot of places that are going to hire people based on what they believe their gender is suited to do, instead of necessarily what their qualifications are.
Yeah, and to add to what you're saying there, real quick, and then I'll give you back to the to answer the question that was presented. But did you know this is a real statistic that the majority of managerial positions, which Justin was bringing up, are indeed male and are held by males that are averaging 6 foot or taller. That's a real statistic, and, and
Actually, I believe that. Yeah.
Yeah, they're just like, you got to be tall to be a manager. So, maybe girls just need to wear higher lifts or something. I don't know. No, that's a joke. That's a joke. But Justin, let me drop it down here. Justin, so I would like you to kind of like, and by the way, thank you for that. That was a great addition to adding to what Samantha was saying, because that's right. Certain companies, especially family-owned companies, do hire with some, questionable choices, and then that's where you get back to what Stephen was saying too, is like diversity is important. And when you're dealing with a mom and pop shop or a family-owned company, you're more likely to see lack of diversity, and that is an issue. That's definitely an issue. However, based on my statistical research, it's such a small variable. It doesn't affect it, and mostly because what Samantha was saying, where she was bringing up that how many females do you see playing football professionally, and and when you get to the women's NBA, that no one watches the women NBA in comparison to the NBA, and that's where the inefficient price ranges. But what you're saying is true. It's absolutely true. There's lack of diversity with that introspect. But Justin, again, I'll just repeat. Leaving the subject of the gender gap, but I want to explore the idea that the position of deadlier jobs are taken on by males over females. Statistically speaking, that is an accurate statement. What could we do as a society to try and get more women to switch from that STEM-based profession and tackle the more data-based dangerous positions leading to more deaths? And this goes back to what Sarah was saying earlier too, where it's like, well, are they choosing it? And the thing is, no, they aren't choosing it. So how do we influence them to take risks working harder, more deadly jobs?
that's a really personal question for the person who's looking for the job. If someone, and I don't know if there is any type of correlation between, who wants to hold a more dangerous position or who feels they have to hold a more dangerous position. Like I don't want to try to make something like I don't have information about, people's motivations for taking jobs as loggers or, professional fishermen. I'm guessing we're talking about the massive fishing boats where it's really dangerous out in the middle of the Atlantic Ocean or something. So I have no information about that, but I don't think that we should maybe be thinking of it as, should we try to get women to hold more dangerous positions? Maybe try to make those positions less dangerous so less people die.
Wait, I saw Sarah raise her hand. I'm gonna jump in. I'll jump to Samantha, but you know what? I agree. I don't think we should be working jobs at all that we die. I mean, farmers themselves, it's in the hundreds per year where they're just like, "Hey, corn," and then someone's like, "I think I ran over a person, not just corn." So I completely get that. But before I jump to Sarah, I just want to say to Justin, what is the idea? Like, let's say somebody had a daughter that was, I don't know, Sarah's size. Sarah is what, 4 foot? Even though she's from Texas, so really her 4 foot is like 7 feet. Because everything in Texas is big. Whatever you had a daughter, not you, but just in general. Imagine there was a guy and a mother and a wife, and they had a kid, and the kid was 4 foot and a female, and they're like, I want to be a linebacker. They can't. Do you think they can do that? You think they deserve that chance to prove that they can be a linebacker in the the football league, the NBA, you know what I'm saying, NFL?
So I think they deserve, if that person really, really believes that they can be a linebacker for the NFL, even if they're 4 foot nothing, weighing 85 pounds, soaking wet, they should be, if they have the performance to try, like if they have the will to try, give them the shot. They probably won't make it. In fact, I can guarantee they won't. But if they can make it through then and actually do the job, great. But for me, it's more about, like, when you're talking about that massive physical difference, in jobs that rely on that massive physical difference, it's if the person wants to try out for it, then great, let them. But it might not go well.
It's a higher probability that it will not go well. But Sarah, let's you wanted to add, so go ahead. What do you have to add?
Yeah, I was gonna say, in order to get women to maybe be ambitious to do more dangerous jobs, like, it's all about support. Being told, like, oh, you can't do this, you're not tall enough for this, you don't have enough muscle for this. Like, it is like, it does affect you to where you don't even want to push to go to that job. Like, if I were to do a total career change, I would actually be a shark diver. And so it's like, would people support me in doing that? Probably not. They'd probably be like, are you crazy? Blah, blah. But, like, I think that's what defers women and stops them from trying to do things, because there's such an idea of, like, well, you're a woman, you can't do
that's
that.
a really amazing point. It's like, do they have the support? And it's the same thing with artists. Artist goes, I want to be a musician. They go, you should have a plan B. Be a nice dream. And it's the same thing. I'm equating that to what you're saying about women. I'm not saying it's the exact same thing, but I am saying that, maybe they need more encouragement to believe in what they can do, because, women power is just, it's just as important as male power. Like, be brave in yourself and your choices. But more importantly, I think you could be a shark diver. Just film it for a YouTube page that will make lots of money, especially if you survive.
I mean, I am going shark diving in April, so I'll let you know
Excellent,
how it goes.
excellent. I love you, and if I don't see you again, just know I believe you can do it. All right, Samantha, you want to? By the way, thank you for that, Sarah. That was absolute great input. Samantha, go ahead. What do you got to add to that?
Awesome. I'm going to piggyback off of all of that. So many things. Sarah, I hope it's awesome and you're going to kill it. And You know, it's funny because you saying that, needing more support, I had written myself down a note. I'm like, maybe it wouldn't be so much about getting women to choose to do these more dangerous jobs. Maybe it would be about empowering women to feel like they have the strength to do these things that they maybe never thought that they could. And then I was just thinking about what Justin said about, you know, are they built for that? Or can somebody, what would that really look like? And then there is the role of genetics for certain things, right? And there is just matter of fact, physical ability to do certain things. And that may be that one woman can do that even more so than a man, depending on the muscle mass and all that, but one would have to see. And I was just thinking that when I grew up, it was WWF when I was a kid. Now it's WWE, but there was only men. Now there's women. Now there's, you know, MMA fighting. And so there's these different things that are shifting. It's taking a long time, but there are these strong, powerful, empowered women that are strong as heck, you know, and just, I think it's, I was just saying, like, kind of undoing those old ideas that men are strong and, you know, women need men to protect them and be the strong ones. And I think it's just, not everybody believes that, but it's undoing these ideas that have been around for many years. And I'll just say my last thing is that when I first started to act, I always wanted to fight. My grandfather was a boxer and I always wanted to box. And as soon as I went to start doing that, everyone's like, oh, but you're going to act in your face. And if your face gets messed up, you won't be pretty and you can't act. And it's like, man, so I can't be strong and be whatever attractive looks like, you know?
Well, I think you're a very strong woman and you are attractive. And it's not because we're related. Also, I believe men are stronger than women because we smell bad, and it's pretty strong, the smell. And physically, I don't know, maybe it's equal, but the smell, men just, I don't know about you, but there's not enough deodorant sometimes. You know, I don't care who you think you are. You could be sprayed with a hose, and you're still like, what is this going on? But no, with Samantha, absolutely true. You know, you added a lot of detail to what everyone's saying, and it is important to realize that, you know, I like that Justin and Samantha were saying, you know, it doesn't matter what size you are, especially for the NBA. You know, go out and try. Will you fail? Maybe. It doesn't matter. Trying is actually the victory. Trying is allowing you to say, all right, I may not have been able to do this, but maybe I could do something else as a football player. Maybe I could be on the team in another way. Maybe I could be a coach. Maybe I could be this. And it's important to just kind of like inspire others to at least attempt to fail. You know, because failure leads to success. No matter how you look at it, you're still succeeding in learning. You're still succeeding in trying and still succeeding in breaking your glass ceilings and saying to yourself, all right, I failed at that, but it doesn't mean I have to give up on this particular industry, this particular path. All right, I can't be a linebacker, but maybe I could do something else. You know, maybe I could get involved in the sales. Maybe I could be a GM. Maybe I could, whatever. It doesn't matter. I want to be in that field. Don't give up. You want to be a shark hunter? Be a shark hunter. You want to be Crocodile Dundee? Go to Australia. You know, it's really, by the way, he has a new movie coming out. Anyway, I want to move on to the final subject of this episode. And I'm going to give this to the whole room, but I'm going to read a chunk of material. So please pay attention, Deus, so you can at least know where we're going with it. And then I'll give the floor to you guys. All right. You peoples. All right. What do you mean, you peoples? I mean, you lovely faces. We're talking heads. All right. The first Avengers movie was a $1 billion hit. And yet the actors in those films made less than you might think. However, Robert Downey Jr., over the course of the MCU, started his career on the Iron Man film, earning a measly $500K. I understand that to anyone else, that's a lifetime. However, it was $500,000 for the first Iron Man film back in 2008. In comparison, Brie Larson, for her first film, Captain Marvel, she earned $5 million. That's 10 times more than Robert Downey Jr. earned. And could you say, well, you know, Robert built the MCU, they had more money? Well, if that's the case, they had more money. Tom Holland as Spider-Man in Civil War was paid $250,000 for that role. And then you say, well, you know, it was a small role. He didn't have a lot of time. And I agree with you. He didn't have a lot of screen time. However, Chris Pratt in Guardians brought home $1.5 million, which is absolutely less than $5 million. Right? It's 3 times as much as Robert made on his first film. But as a Guardian, and only one of 6 Guardians or whatever. What is it, 4 or 5? I don't know. There's a couple. Ruffalo, however, got $2.5 million for Avengers, a movie that made billions. He didn't get back end points on that. He just got paid a flat 2.5. That's 5 times as much as Robert made on his first film, and half of what Brie Larson made. Now, Chris Hemsworth, believe it or not, on Thor, the first Thor film, he made a whopping $150,000 for his first movie. Now, you would think that's insane, but that first movie was terrible. Now, Evans in the first Captain America movie, which was also pretty terrible, he was paid $1 million. That's pretty good, right? That's pretty $1 million. Now, Scarlett Johansson, for her first outing in Iron Man 2, made $400,000. And right there, you're going, Robert Downey Jr. made $500,000 his first time, and she made $100,000 less. This is the first example of a female being paid less than a male on their first outing. However, she made $20 million for the Black Widow movie, which is obviously 4 times as much as Brie Larson made. But on the Avenger films, she was paid $20 million, and Evans was only paid a couple of million. The only person that made more than Scarlett Johansson was Robert Downey Jr., and that was totally based on the fact that he got back end. He got paid less up front, and then he took back end. The movie made $1 billion. Of course, he's going to make some money on that. Now, which is this is where it gets a little bit more like, what the? Chris Hemsworth, Evans, and Ruffalo, who all got between 10 and 15 million for Endgame. Okay, Scarlett Johansson made more than them. Downey was the only person who was basically the face of the MCU who got a return of 55 million because he did the same thing he did on the first Avengers. He took a smaller upfront and took a larger back end, and he was owed it because he was like, I don't want to do these movies anymore. We need you. You're Robert Downey Jr. He goes, all right, but kill me. And they're like, okay. Right? So Endgame broke records with a $2 billion plus return. So that's why he saw 55 million. But he actually got less than the 20 million up front. And that was how he brokered that deal. So to recap, before I throw it to the table, Robert got 500 for his first movie. Brie got 5 million. Holland got 250. Chris got 1.5. Ruffalo got 2.5. Hemsworth got $150,000, which is basically like, school lunch money in this situation. Evans got $1 million, and Johansson got $400K, but eventually got $20 million. She also got $20 million for the first Avengers, and then she got more and more substantial. But anyway, so I want to give this to the room, starting with Sarah, of course. With these figures showing the gender gap mixed, does this support the gender wage gap in that single industry and comparably to the totality of this conversation in general?
I think this whole scenario is different because, correct me if I'm wrong, but don't like agents and managers negotiate for their actors and actresses of how much they're going to make? So like, to me, it's not really about the gender and the situation. It's more about their support and like how much their support is going to fight for them to earn.
I will add to that, to your question, what you're saying. Basically, an agent can only argue the value of their client based on their marketing, their branding, and what they have as a leeway tool. So yes, they do have agents. However, Hemsworth did get $150,000 for his first movie, whereas Brie got, $5 million for her first movie. I'm not saying it's wrong. I'm just saying the value of, say, Hemsworth for Thor, he was an unknown actor. They wanted an unknown actor. They were going for somebody that they wouldn't look at them and be like, oh, that's, Clint Eastwood, even though that would be the most amazing Thor ever. Someone lift my hat for me. I cannot throw the hammer. Well, yeah. You're saying it wrong, sir. I can't speak. Anyway, but to your point, this is just one section of the industry. And it's just giving it, this is an example where, Justin brought it up earlier, where it's like, well, some industries it's unfair, they're not getting what they deserve. And in this situation, they are getting what they deserve. In fact, they're getting more and more of what they deserve as they go up in the brand value, which in turn is a part of the argument that maybe the value of what you can bring to the table, and also the value of if you are not with somebody in that industry. It's the same reason people spend $250 for a Dream Theater ticket, but if like Justin and I did a show, they'd be like, "How much? $10? You gotta be kidding! I got things to do. I have diarrhea to that day, But does that answer? Does that add to what your inquiry was?
Yes.
Okay, excellent. Thank you so much, Sarah. I would like to move on to Stephen St. Pierre. So basically everything I said, and then of course the question of, do these figures show the gender gap mix, or does it support that there might not be a gender gap? However, also anything Sarah said you could add into the equation.
Well, I think you kind of said it with the, and kind of combining what Sarah said. It is. And when you get to that level, for actors, as most of us here, and we know, like, scale and then above is like there's a base and then what you negotiate. And I think you kind of hit it on the head about how your marketing, your branding, where you're at in your career, and you pointed out some of the years and the dates. It was 2008 for Robert Downey Jr. And as you alluded to, he kind of built that universe. Him and Wesley Snipes with Blade, because they both didn't get paid that much when they first did their first two Marvel movies. So when Brie Larson, Captain Marvel, I think was 2017 or 2018 or something like that. At that point, they had been, that money came out their ears over there MCU. So it's like, and Brie Larson, the type of person she was at that time, her status, she was a big name. And, you get paid at that point. You get paid for your value of what you can bring. Put butt in seats, you get paid for that. So I think those are. In this instance, these are the exceptions as opposed to the norms. When we're talking about, the more stable industries where there's kind of just like more fixed numbers instead of, how we have a lot of variance in the film industry. So I don't know how much that would kind of defute the argument of is there a wage gap or not, because this is very a unique situation.
And this goes back to what you were saying earlier about the NBA and the WNBA and also any sport. I mean, Michael Jordan did not get paid what he got paid by the last couple of years of his time on the Bulls. It just didn't happen, but this is also the idea of raises in the industry. But however, what industry has them? Justin, where he's an analyst, is not going to pay him a couple $1 million a year to analyze numbers because that industry doesn't have that kind of money. So he gets paid comparable to that industry. However, this is just an example of, brand value and what's your worth and what do you bring to the table. And you have the right to fight for that value. If you believe you have a certain value in the industry that you're interested in, you have the right to negotiate a contract. You have the right. The law states you can create. I'll get to you in a second, Steve. The law states that you could bring up a proposal, a counter proposal to and they have to, at minimum, think on it. They have to, at minimum, give it a day or two. They have to allow it to be something that's considered. They don't have to give it to you, but they have to consider it. And if they don't consider it in a reasonable amount of time, you can actually sue them for discrimination. But go ahead, Steve. What were you saying?
Yeah, and just to kind of like extend that point, how we talked about like the negotiation or bring up what you feel you should be able to make, and they have to consider it. I kind of go back to where I do challenge just our viewers to look at those positions that are comparable. Because we just had a big incident in the industry with Monique, the comedian and actor, where she raised basically a discrimination case against Netflix, where she basically toe to toe, pound for pound, hey, I've been in the industry for this amount of years. I've been a stand-up comedian for this amount of years. Here are my accolades, and ran down the list and comparing it to, I believe she compared it to Dave Chappelle, who got a $60 million deal with Netflix for his stand-up, and they only offered her $500,000. So those are the instances where I think we have to really pay attention to where it's comparable, right? So we would take a Brie Larson and man X and they're at the same point in their career and see, would he have made 10 million for his first Marvel movie as opposed to the 5 million Brie made, and we see where that that discrepancy is. Because in the case of Monique, although a lot of people didn't like the way she went about it, she did have a point where all the success she's had being a queen of comedy and doing all this, all these tours and things like that, that she only got offered 500,000 compared to 60 million that Dave Chappelle got offered. And I love Dave Chappelle, so he deserves every dollar he got. And she felt she deserved just more, not even 60 million, just more. And she felt that was a direct slap in the face because of her gender.
Yeah, and you bring up a really good point, and I'd like to do a little pushback on that, especially with the devil advocate aspect of it. A couple of things. First, Brie Larson just won the Oscar. That's why she got $5 million. Second of all, Robert only got $10 million for Iron Man 2. So yeah, in comparison, you could see that. And also it was because of the success of Iron Man 1, and they were like, all right, we can pay you a little bit more. You've earned it. So he went from $500,000 to $10 million, which is okay. But as far as Monique goes, you can look up these statistics. So I'm not going to give exact statistics, but I do recommend that you look them up, because you can look at the guesstimate of draw. Again, Justin and I were in a band. If we asked for $1,000, it'd be like, well, how many people are going to come to the show if we put you on the the Monarch? And we're going to be like, maybe 20. No one's going to give us $1,000. But if we were like, hey, we could get 200 people here and they're charging $10, well, that's a fair win. All right, we get 1,000 as a club, and you guys get 1,000 for the show. Now you're making sense. Monique, on her numbers, was not drawing what Dave Chappelle drew. In fact, Dave Chappelle, he vanished for 10 years. And then he was like, I saw Kevin Hart fly past me. I saw all these young guys that when I was ready, I left. They were doing almost nothing in comparison. And then, I come back and there are these huge successes. But when Dave Chappelle came back, everyone was like, whatever you have, I want to eat. I just want it. So, for her to compare herself to what Dave is doing to get the 60 million, I think is irresponsible as a performer. She should know that it's your draw, your value, and your accolades mean nothing. And especially if they're 10 years old. If Brie Larson was like, well, I won an Oscar in 1995, and they'd be like, all right, that doesn't mean anything. Even Marlon Brando was banished from the industry, having won accolades. And they were just like, "You're too crazy. You're trouble on set. You give everyone an issue. You didn't even memorize your lines for Apocalypse Now. In fact, you use a sheet and an earpiece for most of your stuff. And he ended up getting less money for films, and he had to do more films that were crap because he was trying to pay for his island. Yes, island. And he was paying for his 13 kids. Yes, 13. Oh, no, maybe it was 16 kids. 13 to 16 kids with several different women. So he was just like, I have to take anything. I didn't organize my money. I didn't reinvest it. I'm basically living paycheck to paycheck because I was living above my means by deciding not to wear a condom. And it happens. It happens. Like some of us just like, I just like to feel the natural touch of a woman. But anyway, or a man. I'm not going to judge him. So, to the point of Monique, I think she was reaching when she said Dave Chappelle. If she said something like Dana Carvey, who also had accolades, who has won, awards for his comedy albums, his television shows, except for the Dana Carvey show, which was like 3 days old, and they canceled it. Someone around, a celebrity like that. I feel, in my opinion, I'm not saying you're wrong. I'm just adding to the value of, like, did she deserve more than 500,000? Probably. But did she deserve to compare herself to Dave Chappelle's 60 million? No, because Dave Chappelle is doing stadium tours and he's, selling them out. But go ahead.
No, and your point is valid. I think the Dave Chappelle comparison came in the negotiation tactics. You go for the you shoot for the stars, and you hope to just kind of like land. I mean, shoot for the moon and hope to land among the stars. So I believe that was like, you go for that big number because you want to get somewhere in between that. But like you said, yeah, more than 500,000, absolutely. But not 60 million, because like you said, the draw and what have you. But the only thing I want to contend is that she wasn't putting on the show. Netflix came to her to put on because they felt she did have some value, but only 500,000 worth. So that's where she felt was slapping face. Like, you're coming to me to do a special, and I am a person in the industry with some type of clout, and this is what I'm offered, as opposed to what you're offering her male counterparts, in her opinion. So I think that would be the only difference in that.
And yeah, you're right on that. I completely understand and accept, that conversation that, she deserved more. However, I have studied that situation. I was interested in that because as soon as I hear something that seems unfair or uneven, I want to know more about it, because because I believe I have to become the change I want to see in the world. So how do I better myself in the industry? I'll do it by studying and researching what's going on and where people feel, betrayed by their value, right? But in that situation, she had agreed to the $500,000 without negotiation. She did not push for more than 500,000 as per what she said. What happened was she saw that Dave Chappelle was getting $60 million, and she went back to Netflix and it's like, I want more money. And they're like, but you already filmed your damn thing. We can't give you more money. Maybe when we re-up the program, we can renegotiate your royalties. We could renegotiate like Friends. But Friends, when that got renegotiated, they got paid more money, because they wanted to keep it on Netflix, so they paid them more money. But then I think they went to HBO. I'm not sure, HBO Max or something. They went to another platform and they got even more money. And they were like, "We're not staying in Netflix. We got more money." But as a contention to end the episode, basically, what I'm saying is she already agreed without conflict to the $500,000. It wasn't until afterwards she came back and was like, "Well, I deserve Dave Chappelle money because I won these awards." And I honestly believe that she should have fought for more money if she thought 500,000 seemed low in general. But if she was happy to sign that contract. Oh, we got a Samantha. Let's go ahead, Samantha, and then I got to wrap it up.
Okay, so I was just going to say, first thing, if you don't learn this when you come into show business, is that you should know it's a business. And so everything that we're talking about, I'm like, yeah, we're all products. We're not humans. We are, if it were any other business, there are products. We are their product. It sucks that we have feelings. It sucks that it's based on our spirit and our talent and everything internally, but it is. There's a price value. It's messed up, but it is. So like Robert Downey Jr., like exactly everything you guys are saying, the year Brie won an Oscar right before that. What makes us worth? Scarlett Johansson made so much more money. Why? Because she became this hot female empowerment for women. There's always why. It's exploitation even of good things, like, that we're trying to empower women, so we're going to give Scarlett Johansson more money. In my opinion, obviously this all is, but so I just think that that's all a lot of it. And Monique and Chappelle, it's a great example, but yeah, I think you could probably say Chappelle's name like in any country, and maybe not any country, and they know who that is, and there's the draws there. But Monique, that's not as So I agree with both of you. Yes,
that's a good way to end the show. Wait, Justin. I got to give it to Justin. I didn't. Wait, Samantha just went. I would say that's Samantha. That's your voicing. You jumped on that. So Justin, everything that's been said, what are your final words, and we'll end the show.
Ooh, no pressure. Final words. Yeah, I got nothing, man. I'm sorry. I was trying to come up with something insightful to say, and I'm absolutely blanking out.
Well, if I may, we didn't on the first episode, but now that I have you back, I'd like to say Justin's wife Dawn has an amazing company, and she started that company. To the argument of wage gap, she created her opportunity. She said, "I want to do this," She opened a company. She hired people. I believe she hires diversity, if I remember correctly. She has men, women, and of different nationalities. And she's becoming the change. She's choosing as a small business, which, in my opinion, is growing far from a small business. And she's doing some amazing things. So, Justin definitely knows a little bit about this topic because he watches a strong female figure create opportunity, not just for herself, but that environment. And they're always growing and elevating. And I think that's a great way to end the show, is that sometimes when we're not getting what we want from where we want to get it, we have to create the opportunity by doing it ourselves. And that's the reason I became a producer. That's the reason somebody chooses to own a company. When I wanted to do more theater, I opened a theater, and I had it for like 3 years. And it's because I wanted to do more theater. No one would hire me because they didn't know who I was. I didn't have brand. I didn't have anything. And I was like, you know what? I own it. And then people were like, hey, can I do a show at your theater? And I'm like, you own a theater. Yeah, but you have a bigger theater. And I go, yes, pay me. So you become that opportunity. Anyway, with that say, I just want to say I love you guys. Thank you so much for doing this another episode, coming back and saying hi to the audience. So much love and thank you. And you guys are absolutely amazing. Thank you again. With that said, if you want to see Sarah Lee Taylor, Stephen St. Pierre, Samantha Jane Tilton, and of course Justin Hunt, you can find their information down below in the description of this YouTube channel. Now, of course, today was only a little bit of just under an hour of the discussion of, hey, the wage gap. Do women make less than men? We can't figure that answer out in less than an hour. It's an age-old discussion, and it's going to continue to be on that way. But what we're trying to prove with the show is, can we just talk about it? We're not attacking anyone. We're not saying there is or isn't. We're not saying you shouldn't fight for equality. What we're saying is we should be able to discuss it. And sometimes we agree, sometimes we disagree, but we don't fight. And that's the purpose of growing with conversation. But anyway, thanks for joining me on this episode of Let Me Be Round with You. I'll see you next time.
Oh dear.